actually move up into the easy to stop range for the particles that we use for simulating pyramids. So how does RARAF use radiation? Well, I've been talking about microbeams. We actually use a microbeam to irradiate single cells. We watch what that cell does and what its neighbors do, how it responds to that. We also do broad beams. What this does is allows us to simulate an area exposure and look at a comparison between, okay, this is a whole tissue that got irradiated. This is, okay, these cells got irradiated. How do they talk to each other? How do they compare? And again, looking forward again towards stepping from microbeam to tissue to actual treatments. What drove the development of microbeam technology? Where did this idea come from? It actually came from radon exposure. Back in the 1980s, there's the radon scare. Everybody's going to have radon in their basement. Don't breathe, it's bad. What actually happens is, radon is a radioactive gas. It gives off alpha particles as it decays. The problem is it's a gas. So you inhale it into your lungs, it decays while it's in your lungs, and an alpha particle goes through one of your cells, potentially causing a mutation. What's your cancer risk from that mutation? Biologists go, you don't know. The physicists went, we don't know either, but hey, we can build a tool to actually simulate that. And that's where microbeams came from. So thinking about dose as an idea, as I said, most of your dose comes from inhaling radon and stuff. So coal miners, they work down in the ground, they're surrounded by rocks, the air gets a lot of radon. They get a lot of dose into their lungs. So you're seeing, in a lifetime of a cell, more than one alpha particle transversing from their radon decay through the cells in a lifetime. So they get a very high dose. They actually have a measurably increased risk of cancer from that. Now, okay, so the coal miners are people underground. What about people who work in buildings and things that are highly radioactive? Well, they will have less exposure. So you only get maybe one alpha particle track. And as you get there, and sure enough, as the number of alpha particle traversals go down, you get less dose, so you have a lower risk. The real question came about, what about somebody who's just living at home? You're not going to see very much exposure at all, to the point that you might get one transversal, one cell per million. It's very, very low. How do you simulate that? And again, that's where the idea of a microbeam came from. We can put one alpha particle through one cell in a culture and watch how the culture responds. So again, what is a microbeam? Just to make sure we've got, let me hammer this home a little more. Microbeam deposits ionizing radiation in micrometer or sub-micrometer sized regions in a target cell. Allows investigation of intra, what happens in the cell, and inter, what happens to its neighbors, for looking at stress response. So again, we can irradiate a cell. We shoot our microbeam through the nucleus. This will cause a lot of DNA damage, and that's one of the primary things we look at. We can also shoot through the cytoplasm of a cell and intentionally miss the nucleus. Again, it gives you slightly different responses. We have the ability to target individual organelles or different chromosomes inside the cell. You want to hit that one, we can hit that one. Again, looking at different results from hitting different parts of the cell. And the really interesting one is we can hit one cell, guarantee we don't hit the neighbor, and actually look at how the cells respond differently. So the irradiation modes at RARAF, in particles and microbeam, we have an alpha microbeam, proton microbeam, neutron microbeam. We can simulate all of these in broad beam characteristics as well. Photons, we have an X-ray microbeam, and we have a UV microspot. Again, if you remember the ionizing versus non-ionizing response, UV was right on that edge. You go a little bit more and it's ionizing, you go a little bit less, it isn't. So it's kind of an interesting spot to take a look at. And we have these offline sources which allow us to simulate broad beam photon radiations. So that's a quick overview of radiation and what RARAF does and where we're going. We'll back up a little bit and take a little lighter side on the overview of history.